Hello guys, welcome to the Scale SE podcast, where Southeast European founders meet the global stage. Here we will sit down with founders, operators and investors who are proving that world-class companies can rise from the Balkans and scale everywhere. We dive deep into the tactics, habits and the mindset that help them win on the global stage, and we don't just sugarcoat the hard parts. We talk about the mistakes, failed pivots, wrong bets and the moments that nearly broke them. If you're building from the Balkans and aiming for global markets, this is your shortcut. Let's scale together. This episode is supported by the American Resource Center, or the ARC. ARC is the first American space of its kind in Europe, and it exists for one reason: to connect Serbian talent with American opportunity. Whether you're 15 or 35, building in tech, entrepreneurship, AI, or creative industries, ARC gives you direct access to programs, mentorship, and networks that used to require a plane ticket to Silicon Valley. It's not just a space, it's a bridge, and all programs are free, and you can find them at Ložionica in Belgrade, and you can start building your path beyond borders. Today's guest embodies what scaling Southeast is all about: building world-class companies from the Balkans. Goran Stevanovic co-founded PS Tech straight out of university and spent 13 years growing it from a small outsourcing shop to more than 300 employees before selling to Endava, one of the region's landmark exits. He then spent 7 years as the managing director of the European operations at Endava, helping scale the companies across borders and markets. Post-COVID, Goran made a jump to venture capital, where he joined Self-Central Ventures as a partner, where he spent the last 5 years deploying capital into the next generation of SE founders. Goran is going to be one of our first guests at the podcast. Goran, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
All right, I wanna start with who was Goran before university? What were you obsessed with as a kid, and when did you realize you wanted to build companies instead of working in a 9-to-5 job?
So these things didn't come at the same time, I would say. So building companies, wanting to build companies, and being obsessed with one or the other thing. Going back to my elementary school, second grade, I became obsessed with computers. This is the first time I got in touch with a computer. It was Amstrad Schneider. I got hurt very badly on a ice hockey practice, and my uncle actually brought his computer to me. I had to sit for 3 weeks in my home, and then I started playing. There were no games on that computer. There was just a book like this of basic programming in basic language, and I started playing, and I was obsessed. For the first time, I fell in love with the computers because you could just tell them what to do, and they would come back and do what you told them. At that point, I realized I want to be a computer engineer, computer science engineer, and from that moment onwards, I was just, I was sure. People at my age didn't even know 5 or 10 years later what they wanted to do, and I was sure I wanted to work with computers, build software, and have fun along the way. Wanting to build companies came really and honestly very late in time, much later. Before doing that, I had a couple of small ventures. One of them, which might be interesting, was the first venture that we actually sold the software was first year of high school. Me and my friend were just experimenting with the Clipper software. We were just playing around, and we realized that our high school, 14 Belgrade High School, didn't have any means to process the final exam of the high school and the acceptance exam for the high school data. And we suggested to our principal that we build the software and sell it to the high school. And he was very interested because they were using just the typewriters, and they spent a lot of time, the whole team, and we built the software. The price was that we don't go to school for 2 weeks, and we thought it was crazy price. He would never admit to that, but he simply said, yeah, sure, don't go to school, build the code and come here. So for the next 5 or 6 years, we were actually our high school was using our software to process data, to input the marks, and we were there for the first 2 or 3 years together with our computer science professor to kind of help them process things, and then finally publish the list of acceptance. So this is the first time We built the software. I was actually more in charge of building the software. My friend who was a born salesman. He was in charge of selling for this incredible high price to our high school. So this is how it all began. But in the meantime, I really played a lot with building small pieces of software, and yeah, I mean, building companies came later. We'll talk about that.
Amazing. So after that, you basically started university, and during university, you had a pretty amazing thing that happened. You were with ISEC organization, and you got a chance to visit San Francisco in I think you said January of 2020. So right when the dot-com crash in the U.S. started. So I wanted to ask you, like, how did that look like? You were in San Francisco during that time. Um, Explain to us, like, what was the situation there?
So first of all, it was yeah, like you maybe wanted to say 2000, 2020 would be great if I just graduated from my studies then. I would be much younger. No, but 2000
2000, yeah,
was a very difficult time here, and just to set the context, how I got to US. First, I had to get my US visa in the Budapest embassy, US embassy in Budapest. So 8 hours by minibus, and then after that, again, flying to US was through Budapest airport. There were no flights still from Belgrade. So I'm coming there, just to imagine, I'm coming there from a land that was just came out of the crisis of the war, and I'm going to the best place for software engineers in the world, and that's Silicon Valley. And what did I know, about Silicon Valley? Well, there was I managed to find a friend of mine had a subscription to National Geographic that he was receiving from US directly. There was no regular way to get it from here, and he had a map of California, and then I took that map and put it on the wall and started learning the names of the places there, just to memorize and to understand where I'm going. Once I landed, I started learning where I got, and I started getting more and more confident. And the things that I knew, first of all, I thought they were just miles away from what is needed for a job that I went. But I was still brave to go and try my luck. And I said, okay, I have a return flight ticket. If things go wrong, I can always change it, pay $100 and go back home, and like nothing happened. So I had a plan B. But fortunately, I didn't have to use that plan B. It was crazy times. The bubble burst. There was a lot of engineers with a lot of years of experience available on the market. But our CEO of that startup that I worked for, he had a crazy idea to build a company out of graduates and undergraduates. So we were only three software engineers in the company. Two of them just graduated from the Jyväskylä University in Finland that he got in touch through ISEC again. And I still hadn't graduated, so I still had like 10 or 12 exams to finish my studies. And we were there. One of us was CTO, and we were all directors of engineering, or whatever you want to call it.
And you were like 20, 21? How old were you?
2000, I was 23.
23, okay.
And then there was a bunch, half of Silicon Valley was there with no jobs, and we were there doing the best job in the world. In the beginning, it kind of the whole context was crazy, and I was afraid of what's going to happen. But on the other hand, I was, I knew what I knew, and when it came down to daily job and doing my job, I was first of all able to do it and fulfill it, but I was learning like crazy on every day, every night, because we worked basically 9 to 10 p.m. every day, and we were paid like trainees. But I think the experience we got changed my life. I mean, the whole career, everything I did so far in my career is basically thanks to that year of working in a startup in Silicon Valley.
What was the culture like back then there? And if you, let's say, compare it to what you see now, I'm sure you've probably been to San Francisco in the last couple of years. Like, what's the big difference at the moment between 2000s and what's happening now in San Francisco with all of the AI buzz and everything that's going on?
You could argue that Silicon Valley has always been the center of it all. But today and these days, it's gotten so big and I think so distant to its core that it was at that time I was able to hear some stories from the 70s and 80s how computers were built at the bar. I don't think you can get these things now. Everybody's talking about AI and things like that, and how to compete with the rest of the world, with China, etc. There's a lot of worry. I think at 2000 it was really, the Silicon Valley was dominating the world. There was nothing even close, even on the radar, not even close to it. It was the center of it all. There were no doubts about where the world is going, where things are going, and it was much more relaxed, I think, and more creative. These days, it's so sped up that the speed is incredible, that you kind of start feeling that it's really crazy. You have to be either at 150% or you cannot make it. There is no time for reflection. Personally, I liked it much better the way it was, not because I was younger, but because it felt like you had time to think about things. You actually were able to contribute some new great ideas, whereas now you just feel like a small part of it all.
Cool. And while you were working at that startup in San Francisco, you mentioned to me that you pitched an idea of bringing new software engineers from Serbia to this company. And can you share a bit more how that conversation went, and how did you start with PS Tech?
Sure. The whole, it all started first with my first estimate I gave in my career as a software engineer. I was asked by the CEO, how much time do you need to do this? And the task was really complex. It was reverse engineering the binary code of a PowerPoint file. And I said, okay, I'll need 3 weeks. It ended up taking 20 people 3 years, and not one person 3 weeks. And in the process, I learned that this is going to be a big task, and we need more people. We need more developers. So I told him, and he said, "Okay, great, but where do we get them from?" And I told him, "Well, we can get them. I have some friends who are even better than me in software programming. Let's get them here, or let's open an office in Serbia." And then, looking back, as I mentioned, 2000, very, very difficult year, very unstable times here in Serbia. And he was not keen on opening an office in Belgrade, but he said, okay, I like your idea, but I don't want to be exposed. I don't want to open a company in Serbia, but if you want to open a company and kind of start providing services to our startup, that would be something that I'd consider. And I said, great. I bought a plane ticket, went back home, and I spoke to 3 of my friends from the university, and they were the first 3 hires of PS Tech. Later on, we grew that company to 350 people, like you mentioned, and sold it to Endava in 2015. But it all started really with just fulfilling the need on the market that I saw firsthand. And that's one of the key lessons in my career. I think as you wander through your career, as you kind of talk to people, doors will open. Some doors will be closed, but some doors will open. You need to be there. You need to be knocking, and some doors will be open. Once they're open, you need to recognize the opportunity. It's not like you have to have crazy innovative ideas and that you just have to be on the market, learn what people need. Sometimes it will be developers, sometimes it will be a new product. And once you're there, once you're open and listening, I think you open up the whole new world of opportunities to yourself. So that's one of the lessons I'm trying even today to kind of transfer to the companies that I work with. You need to be where the clients are, and that's how it all started.
Cool. And so you're 23, you started this company, PS Tech, you're providing services to this startup in the US. What was it like managing a team without any real prior managerial experience, right? How did that look like? How did you handle that pressure? And was a leadership instinct something you had, or did you have mentors that were helping you out on all these things?
So the first, let's say, 3 to 4 years, there was basically, I had to do it on my own, and it was instinct. Like you said it well, you said it right. So, but when you have a small team, the best instinct is that the job needs to get done. that job needs to be done, and then let's kind of split it to chunks, who is the best at doing what, and who needs help, and that's how I coordinated it. The first year was tough because I was in US and the team was in Belgrade, so we had very limited overlap. And then I would push something end of my work time, and then in the morning I see that the results are coming. Sometimes everything we agreed, sometimes nothing, sometimes something in the middle. Then we had to kind of be efficient about how we do these things, and that it was tough in the beginning, but that gave me exposure to how later on, when we were a much bigger company, how my clients, how our clients actually, what they had to go through in order to work with us. So they also had to wake up a bit earlier so that we have more overlap. They also had to have immense trust that while they are sleeping, we are actually not having fun, but rather really spending our time on building the software for them and a high quality software. And basically, they were putting their careers on the line depending on how we perform during the time that they don't have control over us. And that was a big lesson that things can be done that way, but it takes some adoption from the team, but also a lot of trust and adoption from the client. And once you understand that, then you can start building mechanism so that these things stay on the rails and kind of keep building towards the end of the project. 10 people, not a big problem to manage. You come to 30 people, you need some people to manage people. At that point, we introduced team managers, mostly technical team managers. I was still the one talking to the clients, and we still didn't have any kind of big business performance. My partner in business was covering the legal and financial part and everything that the business needed to run smoothly while we were focusing on developing services to our client. As soon as we came to like 50, 60 people, at that point, I had to identify a couple of managers that would be growing with the company and become, heads and directors and managing 5, 6, 7 million revenue clients down the line independently. And that became a real school of management to me, but a school that I had to go through within my own company rather than having any books and any courses. I mean, you obviously go and listen to a couple of lectures, etc. But in the end, it's you, the problems that you have, the team that you have, and figuring out the best way how you can resolve the problem at hand with the people and with your team, and whether you need to modify the team, whether you need to modify the processes, or you need to change the culture of the company if it's going in the wrong direction. But it's down to you. There is no one way of doing it. I was lucky to have some mentors, and I know you mentioned that earlier, the mentorship, but at that time, the best mentors I had were my clients, because we were working for world leading software and hardware companies like Cisco, like Adobe, Plantronics, Sony Mobile. These were all the successful companies, and they had really good managers, directors, VPs that I worked with. And I tried to learn from every meeting with these guys. I tried to learn how you manage the company, how you manage the people, how you run your all hands meetings. I was invited to a few of those strategic sessions and all hand meetings, and I can see the value of them, and then I would replicate that. And we were really basically learning on the go. That helped us create a culture in Serbia in the early 2000s, like we were a company operating in Silicon Valley. So people that came to us said, well, I feel like I'm not in Serbia. I feel like this is a US company. We were completely fully aligned with not only the culture, but also the processes, the values, and everything that you needed to run the company.
So you mentioned big clients like Cisco, like Adobe. You also mentioned to me prior to this interview that the initial client that you had got bought out and was part of Cisco. How did that process look like when Cisco acquired your customer and they still wanted to work with you guys? How did How did that process look like?
That's a very good question because it was not it was not a smooth ride.
That's what we want to hear.
We had two big obstacles uh, between Cisco acquiring the company and also us joining the team and the deal really happening. One was when the first visit we had was from CFO of this group within Cisco. So Cisco at that point was like 25 business units, each one of them over between 100 million and 1 billion revenue. The CFO of the business unit that was acquiring the company came to visit us and kind of go through the books. He landed at the Belgrade airport. This is 2003, year 2003. So early days of transition from the let's say the Yugoslavian economy to the new free economy. And he was greeted by a consulting company here, their partner worldwide, that I would not name here. And the guys told him, "What are you doing here? I mean, all the companies here are corrupt. Nobody is paying any taxes. You should just take your plane that you came with and then go back home. There is nothing for you to do here. You know, you would not find anything good here."
And at the moment, so 2003, you were like 26, right?
Yeah.
So the CFO of Cisco is in Serbia.
CFO for business unit, let's say,
of a
not the
business
whole
unit.
group,
Okay,
but
okay.
a business unit. But
Yeah.
you know, a pretty big guy, the biggest guy I ever saw in my life in terms of his position and influence. And so he came and he decided to still do his job, you know, rather than listen to the advice of a consulting company. And they, I still remember, it's like in the movies, we had put all the papers, everything. My partner, who is in charge of for finance and legal, was, spending 2 days and nights and with our bookkeepers, accountants, everybody. And they gone through all that. And, the final comment of his final comment was, then we went for dinner second day evening, and he told me the story that he was told that he should leave immediately because he would find nothing positive here. And he said, in the end, the guys told me, well, you're lucky because these guys look to be in 1% of the companies in Serbia that actually pay salaries fully on to the account and nothing in cash at that time, and everything was done. And this is a big kudos to my partner who was actually doing all this and decided from day one that we are either going to do things as they should be done, or we would not be doing any business and we would not be taking any shortcuts. And basically that got us through the first checkpoint. But then the second checkpoint was CTO of the business unit was to fly here and kind of talk to the team. Unfortunately, a disaster happened at that time, and let me see if I got this correctly. Yeah, this was 2003. Unfortunately, our prime minister was killed the first day he landed to Serbia.
Yeah.
So it was, the whole company, we were all in shock, what's going on. He came to a country where the prime minister was shot. He was thinking, should I go, should I leave? But he liked the team, he liked everyone, and he stayed. He did the full due diligence, tech DD. He saw the expertise that we had was exactly what they needed, and they decided to proceed and kind of give us the first contract was a 2-year contract with Cisco. So besides doing the great job, we had some challenges, and unfortunately, I would be much happier not to have to mention these challenges. But this is the time that we lived in during the early 2000s, and maybe it sounds frightening to these generations today, but I think they are lucky they live in a world where currently they don't have issues like that. They can focus on building businesses, and they can focus. And I think the whole scene now is completely different. You have people from all over the world coming to Serbia to look for the next, next generation founders, tech companies, and they have no worries or no issues with taking investing. I would say in this region. It wasn't like that in the early 2000s.
So, how were you able to acquire all the other big names in the industry during that period at PS Tech?
Well, we could talk about, and maybe this is a point where the companies that I kind of advise now should switch off. But we didn't have a proper sales team. I was doing the sales, so I was flying to US 3-4 times every year. I would sit down with my clients, go through the quarterly business review of how we are doing, what can we do better, and etc. I was online with them also in between, but this was the good time to sit down face to face and talk to them. And then I asked for recommendations. Can you recommend us to somebody? And we got recommended. But I think that the biggest source of new deals for us was when somebody was leaving the company we worked with, like Cisco or later Adobe, and left to be a CTO or to be the VP of technology to another company. He would immediately pick up the phone, call us, and say, "Okay, guys, we had a great time, and you guys delivered great services to us when I was at Cisco or when I was at Adobe. Let's do it again." And I think that paid to the quality, talks about the quality of the work that the teams we had were delivering, and it was the biggest reference. Of course, we also sold to some smaller companies, startups. I started going to some startup events. We offered to. We also had a partner there find a partner who was reselling services for us. But this was all later when we were 200 plus 300 people. It was at that point much easier to finance all these things. But early days it was really word of mouth recommendation and great based on the great work that teams were delivering.
Yep. And today, what startup founders can do in a similar situation would be they can just go on LinkedIn, right? And they would see if some of the customers that they were working with have moved to other companies, changed jobs, and they can basically figure that out right away. Back then, it was word of mouth, and you had to do a really stellar job in order for them to go to another company and actually say, "Yeah, these guys were amazing. Let's hire them back." So. That's that.
Yeah, and it worked for a services company. It doesn't work
Yeah.
for a product company.
Yep.
And obviously these days, and we were not VC backed up companies. So at this point, when we invest, we expect people to to scale. And scaling means finding the right people on the ground where your clients are, and building your pipeline, your sales funnel, talking to as many clients, going to the conferences, etc. So we also went to conferences, but again, I think scaling, and this is something maybe we can talk about later, but scaling is from this region is an interesting topic and something we worked on a daily basis with our companies.
Yeah, we will get to that. So PS Tech, after I think 13 years, was about to get bought out by Endava, right? It's an exit that everybody dreams about, right? But M&As typically are messy. I would like to ask you, like, if you can share specifics of that M&A deal, and from a founder's perspective, what are the mistakes that you have made that you would not have made if you had prior experience, or if somebody advised you during this process? And what should founders absolutely not do when they're negotiating an exit?
So if this was the first exit, obviously. So
Yeah.
if it's your first exit, one thing I would never do is go without an advisor. So we had an advisor, and it was, during the process, it became more and more obvious to me that without the advisor, things would have been much harder. When you talk, it's not exits are not only about the price. It's about what you want to achieve. I think you have to build. Going to an exit without having a story of what you want to achieve, without being sure of what you want to achieve, would be a mistake. So when I say what you want to achieve, is like, do you want to completely exit, start something new, or you want to retire, as it was the case with my co-founder from PS Tech, or if you want to actually continue building a world-class product within the larger organization and take an executive role within that organization. with much more resources than you had before as a smaller company, with more footprint, maybe global clients, etc., etc. So it really depends on what are you excited about, and then the whole exit plan should, I think, go into that direction. So it's not only about, well, we can be sold to private equity or we can be sold to a strategic, whoever comes up with a higher price. I think that approach will get you to a place where you're not happy. And happy, to me, it's not only about money. Happy is about what you want to achieve with your company. And maybe it's closing that chapter and going for something completely new, and that's fine. But I think first of all you should be sure, or you should kind of reflect yourself what you really want to do, and then approach it from there. Then they get the advisor. The advisors we had were very, very helpful. In some cases, they couldn't really, it's the founders that sell the company. The advisors run the process and kind of educate you on the go, because you don't have time to learn about all the intrinsics of an SPA in the end, and all the warranties and clauses that kind of get to you once the first draft of an SPA is on your table. It's like 150 pages or something that you need to read through, and it can affect your future for the next 5 to 10 years. So and your past in terms of what you've built. So those two lessons to me would be kind of important. When you ask me about our process, it was an interesting one. It had episodes like those in the movies where we had 2 rooms and then negotiating, but this is like one afternoon when the whole deal structure was negotiated, and then you go to basically a process that lasted another 2 months plus. This is the ironing out the SPA. So I spoke to the CEO of Endava. We agreed on the basic terms, and then we started going into SPA. And this is where lawyers got in, and lawyers obviously, they're doing good job. They're paid by hours, and they also have high rates, so they want to show their value. And sometimes they would be overprotective, either of our side or the clients or the buyer side. And in a couple of instances, we had a clash of lawyers that basically was going nowhere. And at that point, me and the CEO of Endava, we basically went to a room or had a call and discussed what is important to you, what is important to me, and then we agreed on these terms. And went to and back to the lawyers, told them that, guys, we agreed on this. No need for you to spend any more time. So you could see that. In a couple of instances, the deal was almost falling through, just because there were small things, and there was, I would say the lawyers wanted to protect ourselves, but maybe we're going just a bit beyond to what's really important to us. So I think maybe I would add to those lessons again, basically what you want to achieve, but also what is important. What are the red lines that you don't want to cross, and then what are the areas that you are actually happy to negotiate, and maybe give some to get some. I think being prepared in that sense would make it much easier and stressless for you going into the process.
So the exit happened. You were appointed managing director of European operations, right? How did the next 7 years look like at Endava?
So when we joined Endava as a team of 350 people, together we were 1,800 with the whole of Endava. There was a big plan to go public for Endava. The idea was that within the next 2 to 4 years we should be able to go public on the New York Stock Exchange. So one of the reasons I wanted to stay and be at the strategic team of Endava was to learn how does it look from inside to take a company public on a New York Stock Exchange. It's like the biggest one, I guess. You can go as a tech company, and we considered Nasdaq as well, but we decided to go for a New York Stock Exchange. As a managing director for Europe, I had my responsibility was also integrations and M&A. Not simply finding the targets, but then as soon as we decide and the CEO negotiates the deal, then I would be taking over and integrating these companies. So I ran another 3 integrations of companies from the Netherlands, Romania, um, and also the CDS, the Contract Digital Services, that was basically throughout the whole ex-Yugoslavia, 500 people. So that's where I learned even more about M&A, but also integration. So one thing is that you sign the deal, the SPA, share purchase agreement, but at that point the great work starts, and that's how do we integrate the company and not lose any value from integrating the company, but rather create value in keeping what they did better than us and then giving them what we have as resources that they didn't have. So making 1 + 1 be more than 2. So ideally 3, 4. It's not always easy.
Yep.
And it's a big task, and again, you know, I would say if you have money on the bank account, it's easy to buy companies, but getting the value out of the acquisitions is a completely different story, and this is something that Endava got good at some point, but after a couple of let's say learning lessons, and yeah, I mean, at that point, besides that, I really had a lot of visibility into preparation for the IPO, and it was fun times. But you know, the time was flying, and the company grew to like 8,000 people. And at that point, with 8,000 people, you feel so detached from your clients, from where you're actually adding value to the clients, which is where I really love to be at PS Tech, talking to my clients, understanding how we can help them better, how we can then internally be better organized to serve these clients. You know, you start managing at some point I was having 5 business unit managers, directors reporting to me. I was co-heading the P&L of 100 million pounds at that moment, and it felt so distant from the action, from clients, from engineering, that I decided to leave and go back to where the action is, and that's startups, and that's new ideas, that's engineering, that's winning new clients, that's selling even if nobody is wanting to buy, and you know, these types of challenges kind of, to me at that point, sounded like a great option. And I got an offer from a friend of mine who is a partner at SCV to join as a fourth partner, as we were raising, SCV was raising the 3rd fund. And it was the perfect time, and something I really wanted to do.
Amazing. So talk to us more about South Central Ventures. So you've joined the company as a partner in 2020. Explain to me, like, I'm a 22-year-old founder. What does South Central Ventures do? How do you guys invest money into founders in the Balkans? And what happens after you invest the money? How do you help out the founders?
So maybe let's start a little bit with a little bit of history of South Central Ventures. So we are in the 3rd fund now. The first fund was really only Slovenia focused, 2008. Then the second fund was raised in 2015, and this was the first fund that took a look, and this was of the whole region. And when I say the whole region, it's Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia, Montenegro, Macedonia. We also include Albania, although we didn't make any investments in Albania to date, which doesn't mean we will not in the future. And that's something to kind of look at, because there's a lot of funds popping up in specific countries like Slovenia, Croatia, also Serbia. That cover only one country, which is great, which is fine. But we kind of took a regional look at the whole story. Our view was that for the size of the fund that we are managing, and the fund 3 is a 60 million euros fund, we would not be able to find enough deals in one of these countries. So we had to look at it from the regional perspective. And this is, I would say, aligned with also your approach.
Yeah.
The second thing is that we believe in being a very, or let's say, active partner. We invest in pre-seed and seed, so early stage. We want to be the first institutional investor that comes into a company as an investor, obviously after angels and friends, family and fools. But we to be close to the founders, you need to be on the ground with the founders. So that led to our strategy of having 4 offices. So we have 4 offices, one in Belgrade, one in Ljubljana. We also have offices in Zagreb and Skopje. That's important for us because we want to be where the founders are before we invest and also after we invest. Because again, as I said, we want to be close to the founders. We are active partners and we want to be able to sit down over a coffee, discuss some things. I also like to work with the founders that I work with on the whiteboard. We have strategic whiteboarding sessions. This is something I really love. Some of them ask me to do it, some of them don't, and that's fine. Whatever we as a fund can provide as added value, we are there to provide. We are not there to push anything on our founders in terms you have to use us, you have to do this and that. But we are open and very eager to help where we can. So these are 2 elements of the strategy: regional and close to founders, and also the third one being very active partners. Once we we invest obviously in software companies.
Yep.
Tech widely, but software mostly B2B SaaS, also some B2C, some marketplaces. The market is still so I would say shallow in a sense in the number of deals that we have to be generalistic in a sense. We cannot specify it. We cannot focus on one vertical because at that point there would be not enough deals for us. So yeah, these are the key elements of what we do, who we are. And yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure you have some more questions.
Can you give us like an example of 1 or 2 companies, like how you help them with like scaling internationally or helping them raise a follow-on round?
Yeah. So one,
if
maybe the fourth
important
thing is that we are looking for a global aspiration. So we want founders to be bold enough to look to build global companies, if not global, at least international companies serving not only the region. The region is too small, I think, for us to kind of do the math, the fund math. So really they need to be looking at scaling the business globally. And then your question about how do you help them scale. So there's there's a lot of things we work with them on. From day one, we focus on go-to-market strategy, on the specific team, scaling up the sales team in the regions where they want to sell, where they want to grow the business. We connect them to some people that have helped our portfolio companies in the past. We connect them with founders from our portfolio who can share maybe their previous experiences. But the key, I think, let's say added value is we connect them to funds that we have co-invested with or that we know from the past. And this network is something we have built over the last 15 plus years. And it includes our co-investors from US, from Europe, from even Southeast Asia. There's a number of funds we invested with, we keep good relationships with, and whenever our companies from our portfolio are ready to raise the next round, we kind of we jump on a fundraising effort together with them. So one of the companies I work with closely is right now in the fundraising mode, and I'm basically having calls with potential co-investors on a daily basis, and together with them working on how we can be useful, how we can helpful, reviewing the pitch deck, so all these things. We are their partners in the business. We have invested in this business and we want to help them for this business to grow. It's great to see that the companies we invested in like 2 years ago are today completely different companies to where they were when we invested. But the more important thing is that somebody else sees that, and that would be the investors for the next round. So on the VC track, there is no one round and then you're done.
Yep.
Usually, to really get to the global success, you need to raise a number of rounds, and we know that we can be very active in the early rounds. Later on, Series A, we would maybe just follow on, and then for Series B, we don't have enough. Our fund is not big enough so that we invest in Series B. So at that point, we go back to the back seat, and somebody else takes over. And who that somebody else is? Well, that's a critical thing for us. We want to connect our founders with the funds that actually can add value, not only by investing, but also to knowing the vertical they're operating in, or knowing the region where their clients are, ideally both. The ideal next investor in the company we have invested in already is a fund that has experience in that specific vertical, on that specific global market where they want to grow. And at that point, if the round is closed, our job is almost done. Then we just sit and wait for the liquidation event, and then we can exit and return the money to our investors.
Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about some difficulties that we have here in the region, right? In terms of investing. You guys are an institutional investor, and the first institutional money that comes into a startup. What deals, if you can name examples or names, that would be good. If not, doesn't matter. But if you can talk to us about like specifics of those deals that you're really interested in investing, but didn't invest because they had some, how would I say, bad deals in place before you guys got in, right? Some contracts with some mentors or consultants, or challenges with ex-founders that left and were trying to hold companies liable for their equity. So can you talk to us about those scenarios? And what we really also want to understand is how frequent they are. Like how frequent do you get to a point where the startup is amazing, you want to invest, but then you take a look at the legal due diligence and you're like, no, we're going to stop here.
So it's not uncommon, and we do face these challenges. It's not like every company has that.
Yeah.
If I would have to play statistics a bit, would be maybe between 20 and 30% of the companies that we look at. Again, we look at early stage companies.
Yeah.
So hopefully they didn't have time to screw it up, but they do. Sometimes they come with cap tables which are really funny, and our job is to first of all, as I said, it doesn't end with our round. It just begins with our round.
Yeah.
It's the first round, as you also mentioned, and the company needs the one deck, slide that we have in the board deck for all the companies that we work with is fundraise readiness for the next round. So what does it mean? It means KPIs that we want to achieve to be ready, but it also means, is our cap table good enough for the next round? And that also needs to be cleaned up even before we invest. So we don't want to do the cleanup once we invest. It's very hard. So we would ask the founders to do the cleanup before we invest. And if they don't do it, we don't invest. And then maybe some examples. I wouldn't name the companies because we are obviously talking about the issues, and I would not like to uncover the issues that we saw in specific companies. But I can tell you that one of the things we see a lot is a spin-off. It's a spin-off from a services company, and this is something we also did at PS Tech. We wanted to build a product. When you're doing services, you want to build a product. When you have a product, you want to have some recurring revenue. Then you also look at services. So it's kind of the grass is greener effect.
Yeah.
But a lot of successful regional services companies want to build a product, and some have been successful, and some have not found the right way. And And when you have a proposal that says that, well, this is the services company, we have built this in-house, we have financed it, and now we want to spin it off. It will be 51% owned by the company.
Yep.
And then we found two good managers who will be the founders, and they would have 10% each in the company. First of all, when I see a manager turning founder, it doesn't sound right to me. The founder is a founder. The manager is an employee, so there is a big difference there, and it's perfectly fine to be both. But for building companies, you need founders, and founders go through tough times. The founders are sometimes eager in the beginning to put their hours, crazy hours, and tears and sweat into building companies without being paid. And this is not what we expect them to do, but sometimes the situation comes that they need to do it. And managers would, they have a completely different view at how the companies they operate in established companies, stable companies, and as soon as they would face these issues, they would ask themselves whether they can work in another place. So first of all, we don't invest in a company without a founder. There has to be a founder, a proper founder. Second thing is that a services company owning 50% is something we would never invest in. So it's okay if the company keeps some percentage, if there is maybe even a licensing, a royalty kind of scheme, or etc. We don't like that, but we can negotiate it on that side. But we want our founders to be at 50% jointly after Series A, and that's a key milestone we put at least at 50% after Series A, and then we work out the cap table backwards. And if we cannot achieve that, then we don't invest. We also don't want to take too much stake at when we invest. We usually go in very early for between 10 and 15%, in some crazy cases up to 20%, but then with a clear view of how we're going to go down and how the founder is going to keep 50 plus through Series A and beyond, because we know that this is something that the Series A investor would be looking at. And the same way as we look at in non-investable cap tables when we invest, they would also see maybe some cap tables that we invested in as non-investable because of these things. And as I said, we want to clean them up before. So we have seen accelerators also taking, we are in a developing market. So we have, the VC stuff, it's new here. It's like maybe 5 years ago, you could count the VCs here on one hand, on the fingers of one hand. And
now you can do it with two hands.
Two hands, yeah, it's getting better, but it's still very early stage. And what we are doing here, and also on a daily, is educating the market. And you have VCs, you have accelerators that come and go, some stay, and that's great. And then you have some opportunistic behavior to kind of get as much as you can early on, and then you build the value. Well, that's also how you can kill the value, and from becoming a value. Kill the company from becoming valuable in the future. And we have seen accelerators taking some huge stakes by offering services, sometimes not even cash, which is services are fine, it's great, but it has to be limited to a certain point that the company is still investable later on. And I think if you take that approach, and then you are in the same boat with the founders. It's important that even the early investors are in the same boat with and look at the company through the eyes of the founder and how we're going to build this to a valuable company, rather than how I'm going to take the value now.
Yeah. And when you say ridiculous numbers, that's accelerators or service businesses taking anywhere between like 20, 30, maybe 40%.
Yeah, I mean, service businesses would take more. Accelerators, I haven't seen accelerators taking more, 20%, to be honest, and that's good. But, I think even 15%, depends on what you provide. If you provide also financial investment, then it's a different story. Then it's not only a service, but, the common thing, what we are seeing is around 5-6% accelerators, and that's fine.
That's fine. Okay.
Anything beyond 10 kind of puts you as an important investor at that point. So for 3 months or 6 months of services in an incubator.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, this is our view. There would be different VCs having a different view, and there would be different founders seeing more value than what we assume that they get by some accelerators.
Yeah.
And then if they accept that, we are happy, but then they need to be aware that it might influence their investability down the road.
Yeah. So this is one really key lesson that startups and founders should take away from this podcast is that they have to be really careful and mindful of what partners, consultants, accelerators, anybody who wants to take their equity, they have to be mindful of how big that equity is and how that is going to impact follow-on future investors, either here regionally or later on in the United States. And that's really important to not have rash decisions, but to be rational and ideally always consult the investor who's going to come after. For example,
just for advice.
Yeah.
But I would add here that not only decisions, but I would consider it as a strategic planning.
Yeah.
So the same way you plan how your company is going to grow in terms of KPIs, revenue, etc., MRR, how it's going to grow team-wise. You know, then we're going to add another layer, then we're going to add this person and that person. So how you're going to evolve your org chart, you should also plan how you're going to evolve your cap table.
Yeah.
Basically, for each stage of investment, you should have some boundaries. Doesn't have to be very punctual, but you should say, well, in this phase, we should have this type of split, and then we go for this type of split, and then we go for this type. And that makes the whole picture, because the cap table should follow it fits in. It's just one aspect of the company that the founder needs to carefully build.
Yeah.
So building the company is building everything that I mentioned. All these dimensions of building the company. And if you have a strategy, if you have a plan and boundaries, it's gonna make your decision-making process along the way much easier.
Yeah. How approachable are you guys when startup founders from the region want to ask you for advice, get your thoughts on their pitch deck or whatever? How do you guys work with startups that are not yet in your portfolio?
So that's a good question. I personally would like to be more approachable. The sad truth is that we are a very small team. We are 10 people team, and regionally, and in Belgrade we are 3 people, 2 investment basically managers and a CFO. So CFO is not really helping us with financial advice could help, but not with pitch decks. So with this limited resources, we cannot help any company that approaches us to review their decks, etc. But we try to be approachable in the events. Whenever you have any question that we can answer immediately, connect you with some people, or some people who are maybe in a similar situation like you, or were in a similar situation like you before. Connecting people doesn't cost any time, and this is something at least that we can do. Also giving advice if somebody wants to listen. To me, that's the first important part. Are you really looking for an advice that you're going to listen to, or you're just asking to ask? And I have seen people asking questions and getting advice that they never actually implement. Well, maybe they thought it was a stupid advice. That's also an option. But yeah, I mean, free to approach us on the events. Happy to talk to you and the companies, and especially around the events where we set aside some few hours to kind of sit down and talk to these guys. And this is something at least that we can do for the community.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Goran. Now I'm going to ask you like very quick questions for the end of this podcast. The first one, I would like to know what is like one hobby that you love doing and why.
Hobby. Sports, definitely. Sports. I've been competitive, competing in sports since I was a kid. Lately, I'm doing sailing for the last 18 years now, competitively. And why? why sailing? Sailing is such an amazing sport. It combines physics, it combines team effort. You have to make decision making, so you have to make decisions quickly, and it's outside in the nature, and it kind of charges me with a lot of positive energy. So all the aspects that are important to me are basically covered in one sport. So I would definitely recommend it for people to try.
Cool. What is one book that you have most recommended to founders and why?
Yeah, I might, I might not, I might reply to this question in a little bit differently. I get when I read a book, I get connected to it or not, and I get connected to it on a certain aspect that I feel will not maybe be important to everybody else. It will be important to people with similar views and similar aspects of the business. But maybe one that I recommended the most is it's a small book written by business writer Patrick Lencioni. The book is called Getting Naked. And when I read that book, it became obvious to me why we were successful in building PS Tech and why customers wanted to work with us. And it became so obvious that I was like amazed that, well, it would have been great if somebody told me to read this book before, before, so I can learn some specifics. But to me that was important, and maybe that's something I recommended to most of the people. But it's not one of these well-known 0 to 1 or all these crossing the chasm, and it's there's a lot of these, but this one personally touched me in a way that I still remember that feeling when I was reading the book, and it was 15 years ago now.
So, Getting Naked is the
Getting
book.
Naked is the book, yeah.
Cool. I also think like Venture Deals is a pretty good book for any entrepreneur who wants to learn more about venture capital and how to basically speak with investors and what are all the specific nuances of like the term sheets, the cap table, how to do all of these things. It's just a very well written book. I've read it once and I'm going to read it again probably. But yeah, just a
It's a great book. It's
yeah.
a great book, great recommendation. Also a great reference book you can keep on your table because you can just go back to specific
Yeah.
chapters. And yes, I would definitely recommend it to founders before raising to read.
Before raising, yeah, of course.
Because then they would know what they can expect, and for us it would take a lot of education from before we start talking to them, which we are happy to do. But I think with this book you get to up to speed quite quickly.
Yeah. How do you digest news? What do you read on a daily basis? Do you have like specific newsletters that you read, or yeah?
A few newsletters, but that's mostly in the VC space, so the rounds, what's going on, so that we understand what's going on in the world, in the region, in Europe, how we compare to that. But lately I've been using, really honestly, ChatGPT to do the research and to kind of give me summaries of daily digest of a couple of sources that I normally would read. In this case, I get much faster, much more specific a digest of what I'm actually looking for, because even in newsletters you kind of see one or two things, and playing a little bit with setting up the daily kind of digest gave me a reward of learning how to use new technology, but also really getting a proper digest of where our companies for portfolio were mentioned on that day, kind of also scanning the media. So a lot of things now you can do on your own and cut the time rather than going through the number of sources. So
Yeah, that's one of my friends. He is in real estate, and what he does is he made an automation using ChatGPT and using Google News, where he looks at all of the Google News related to real estate in, let's say, the region and then globally, and then every day ChatGPT using some kind of automation gets all the news, digests it, and then he gets like every day in his email he gets his own newsletter of like what are the new things in real estate, and then he uses that content to basically post on his LinkedIn profile, and that's kind of a very interesting and easy way to automate this
Things are
news
changing.
digestion
6
process.
months ago, I would give you a couple of sources, but now it's
Yeah.
I'm using more sources and I get a better digest.
Yeah. Who is one guest that you think we should definitely bring on the podcast?
It's gonna be a little bit selfish and sound selfish, but I think one of the founders I work with closely is Miloš Zlatković from Miley Technology.
From Miley
I
Technology.
would definitely recommend getting him because he is a guy who is scaling his company right now. They're in a very interesting period at the moment. Raising the next round, expanding, getting clients, in global industry companies as their clients. And but the guy who has and this is not to say that our other founders are not great, but he's here from Belgrade and he's quite structured in a way. He's what I talked about, having strategy for your company and KPIs, but also the team, the cap table and everything. He's kind of doing it in an exemplary way, so I would definitely think his insights on from how you build a company would be quite useful to your audience.
Amazing. We will bring him on. I know Miloš from like 4 years ago, so that definitely thank you for the recommendation. The final question, which is also a question that Harry Stebbings from 20VC always asks on his podcast, is what question have I not asked that you think I should have asked you and that you don't get asked often by people?
Yeah, I didn't think about this prior to the podcast, but maybe what do you personally like doing the most, and maybe that's kind of the question that I rarely get, because people assume that you're an investor, you really enjoy investing and then making money and things like that, but is it really true, and when do you feel most excited about, and maybe that's a question for the...
So what's that for you?
Okay.
What's most exciting about your current job, and why do you love doing it?
Yeah, so, and this was also the case back while I was building the company. The thing that you can actually start from the completely blank whiteboard and start from where we are today and where we want to get, and then start playing how we're gonna get there, and strategic decisions going back to the business. And this is what I also do with the founders, going back to the business, and then a year later seeing that you actually were able to make the progress and get closer to your goals. To me, that's the most rewarding things. First of all, it means that you have your destiny in your hands, because whatever you can imagine putting on the whiteboard, if you're not just too crazy, but even if you're too crazy to shoot for the moon, you might get to the moon, because if you don't put it on the whiteboard, if you don't make it as your strategy and your plan, you will never make it. But then you will be surprised how many things you can achieve just by defining them as your goal, and then thinking through what are the elements of that. And I'm talking now about strategic planning, but it's really these were the moments when we were having the toughest discussions, but also in the end always coming out as knowing that we, in the end, after all these discussions, we made a plan that now we're all aligned with, and we know where it's going to take them. And then seeing on a daily level how you're actually able to, with all ups and downs, get closer, achieving the goal, or even getting close to achieving the goal, is very rewarding to me. And this is where I draw my energy from.
And you love doing that with founders from your portfolio?
Yes. Nowadays I'm doing that with a few founders from the portfolio.
All right. Goran, thank you very much for joining the podcast. Everybody, thank you for listening all the way to the end. Goran Stevanovic, he is one of the partners at South Central Ventures, a regional venture capital fund investing in Southeast European founders. Stay tuned for more episodes like this where we talk with founders, with operators, and with investors from Southeast Europe.